Hi, everybody. So I'm Danielle Downs, and today we're going to be going over highlighting curly hair. And I'm going to be using a vertical technique that is pretty much a circular pattern that's going to go around the head, kind of like a clock. So depending on the head that you're working with, you can modify this where it's just a straight vertical or it can be a slightly diagonal vertical. Today I'll be using the slightly diagonal vertical so that way it disperses around the head a little bit more. This is meant to be a little bit more high contrast. So in between the foils, I'm also going to be just doing a little bit of hand painting on a couple of sections because what I want to do is create a high, a medium, and a low. And you can see the difference between our two mannequins here because this one has not been colored at all. This one has been highlighted and then it's also been toned with Paul Mitchell Crema. And that was 8NB that I used for the whole head just to give it that lovely dimension. And so let's get into it. This was pretty much inspired by a longtime client of mine. Her name is Brittany. I've been doing her hair since she was about, I would say about 7, 8 years old. And she has very, very curly hair. We've played around with color once she got to about 14 years old. For a little while, she laid off of the color while she was in college. But recently, we started highlighting her again. And she has extremely curly hair. Do we have that picture?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it here.
So she's got extremely curly hair, what you would consider coily as well as extremely curly combination hair. And it's all the way down to her waist. Now, in this picture, this was about 2 months ago. So that was after a little bit of a trim, dusting, just to refresh her ends. It's a little shorter in the front because she's got angles. But the back, as you can see, when it's straightened out, she's got a lot of hair. Yeah. Now, with this technique on Brittany, I had actually used Paul Mitchell Color XG. And that was because we wanted to start off with just a very subtle color shift so that later on when the summer comes, we can actually go in with a lightener and pop in a few lighter pieces. But like I said, this is to combine your natural color, a medium base tone, and then some highlights. And you can pretty much go wherever you want from there. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just lightly misting the hair so that way I can detangle. Because you never really want to go in straight away when the hair is in its naturally curly state because there might be a couple of tangles, a little bit of snarling, and you don't want to be ripping out somebody's hair. So this is just to help you work a lot smoother. So I like to go in with a wide tooth comb. And a lot of people think that no, you shouldn't do any type of wet style or wet product on the hair right before you're going in with a lightener. But in this case, we know that curly hair is moisture deprived. So when you go in with something, say like our invisible wear boomerang, which is to help detangle and defrizz the hair, or if you go through with Paul Mitchell Hydro Mist, then that's a great thing to use to help balance out the moisture in the hair so that when you color it, it doesn't have, like spots that either came up too light or came up too dark. So that's just my personal preference. And I'm always welcoming a lot of other stylists to give me their expertise because that's the whole point of a community like this, is to share information. So this is just my take on it. So as you can see, I pretty much go in just from the high point of the head and I start detangling from there and keeping everything straight out. So if they're longer, yes, it might flop over the head so you can part it. But seeing as how this mannequin is a little shorter, I'm gonna go in and just splay everything out in a perfect little kind of flattened out afro, I guess you could say. Now, if you like to section out, keep everything neat, have a roadmap, kind of like I do, then I'm just going to section this into 4 quadrants, very basic. So going from the high point of the head, right behind the ear. For our first section, just clip that away. And then again, from the high point of the head, right down the middle. And now we've got our first little quadrant here. Now, I always find it a little easier to just, when you're working with these duckbill clips, just have the legs or the arms of it, however you refer to it, going up, so that way it doesn't pop out or that you lose control. Gator clips are another great thing, chopsticks also, so whatever your preference is. But basically, you want to get the hair as secure as possible and just out of the way. And as I said, this is a very easy salon reality kind of highlighting technique. And personally, I love it because I can modify it to all different lengths. And I can do as much or as little as I want depending on the head. So always make sure that you're going in and assessing the hair. If you have finer textures and you're using a weave, maybe not use a large weave. You can use a fine weave, so that way it's a little bit more diffused around the head shape itself. Okay, so I'm going in with Synchro Lift today. It's great because it's a potato-based lightening system that lifts up to 9 levels. But what's wonderful for curly hair is the fact that with that potato starch, it's pretty much like a conditioning kind of effect. And it's also not going to irritate if you're using this on the scalp. But mainly, I chose it because it doesn't swell. So especially when I'm doing any of that hand painting, I don't have to worry about it bleeding onto other areas that I don't want it to. Now, also, when you're doing highlighting with this, you want to make sure that when you're doing the hand painted portion, you're weaving out a couple of sections. So that way it blurs the line a little bit, say if somebody wants to blow out their hair and not wear it curly. All right, so depending on your preference, you can start in the back or in the front. Personally, I like to start in the front because that's what everybody sees. That's what they're most interested in, seeing the lightest result.
So Danielle, a couple questions. Jess is asking, says, hey Danielle, thanks for being here. Would this method work for someone who has Moana type of curls?
Absolutely. As I said, depending on the wave pattern that you're using, you're gonna modify your weave pattern. So it can be a larger, fatter weave and maybe like 3 or 4 actual ribbons, or it could be a medium weave and there can be about like maybe 4 or 5 or 6 little ribbons in there.
Okay, great. And then the second question was, when you do highlights, don't you straighten the hair? Or you don't straighten the hair, question mark. Why wouldn't you straighten the hair? I think that's a good way to put it there.
Well, most of the time when I'm going in to do, especially Brittany's hair, it takes me on average about a good 20, 30 minutes just to straighten her hair with, say, a paddle brush. And there's really no need for it. Because if you think about it, you're opening up the hair shaft when you apply heat to it. So if I do that, I'm ruffling that cuticle edge right off the bat. And that might actually just lift up a little bit more. And then when you're dealing with, like, especially color, it can lift a little bit unevenly. And it can irritate the scalp. So I really wouldn't want to do that. Above all, I'm a hair care nut.
Nice.
Okay, let me just get a little comfortable here. All right, so I usually like to work on the side of the head. And again, you can start wherever you want with this. If you want to start near the ear and work that way, you can. I usually like to start right in the part because that's what this person, your guest is going to see. I also like to take out just a tiny little section right in the front. So that way, when I'm weaving, it only shows a shadow of that highlight right in the hairline when she goes to pull it back. Because most naturalistas are going to be pulling their hair into like a tighter, slick back ponytail. So I really don't want to make that difficult for someone to look at for like the first 2-3 weeks if I'm doing like a really heavy weave. Because then it's just going to look really, really stripy. So by having that little veil there, it helps to diffuse it a little bit more. Okay, so we're gonna pop in that first highlight. Now, the other thing that I don't worry about is most of the time you wanna make sure that your section is only as wide as the foil itself. But because we're working on a curly girl that really isn't worried about getting this right to the scalp, it's okay to over direct those corners and have those a little further away.
And Danielle, let's turn her when you get a sec, just to open it up this way a little bit.
Sure.
I don't want to mess up your a little bit more. That's good.
Okay,
And then I'll go the over top.
cool. All right, so just like in the salon, we are always changing things around. We're adapting in the moment.
All right.
That's one of the things that I love about being a hairdresser. We work on the fly. I mean, yes, we want to present everything well, but at the same time, we want this to be as comfortable for our guests as possible.
And what's the name of the lightener you're using again?
I am using Paul Mitchell Synchro Lift. So I'm just going in with the corner of my brush just to tap a little bit closer. But as I said, with this one, you can go very close to the edge because it doesn't swell. So you don't have to worry about those bleed marks pushing over the foil line. And of course, you never want to be messy.
On the fly.
Which I have watched hairdressers that they can work in basically all white. I used to watch a guy named Floyd Kenyatta. He was like the granddaddy of textured hair for Paul Mitchell back in the day. And this guy would wear an all white suit and work with like red, black hair color. Never get a single thing on him. Me, I just fling it everywhere. I'm kind of messy, not gonna lie. Okay, so if you need to, go ahead and clip that out of the way. And just make sure that you're not grabbing onto your foil because you don't want to pinch that. So when you're clipping a piece away, just go right over the foil and connect that to the rest of the hair that you have clipped away on the other side. So again, I'm taking in a rather small section, going in with just a larger weave. And as I said, I'm pretty much following the round of the head here. Left out that little section in the front so that we have a little veil. We don't have to worry about any lines or streaks going on in the hairline when she pulls her hair back, or especially if she blows her hair out straight. Now, when it comes to my guest Brittany, she pretty much only wears her hair blown out whenever I do it, because she's just too busy and she's got too much hair to be doing all that by herself. One thing that I love about natural clients is that once you get a naturalista in your chair and she loves you for life. So I have basically nurtured that hair for most of my career. She was one of my first clients. And I got to work with a lot of different color techniques and color lines as a result of working with her and working with her mom, who had relaxed hair. So with her mother, she wanted highlights as well. So what I would do is use Paul Mitchell The Color because it had a low ammonia base. And it was wonderful for keeping the integrity of her hair intact, but giving her that pop that she was really looking for with color without damaging. And with that, I also used an NB. Relaxed hair is wonderful as well. A lot of people think that nobody is straightening their hair that way anymore. I beg to differ. It really just all depends because you have some of your, I guess you could say like old school clients that they see straight hair as being more professional, but you know, it's changing a lot now. So we're getting a lot more people in our chairs that maybe they're getting what's called a silk press. So they're natural, but at the same time, they like to wear their hair both ways. So it's more of a convertible lifestyle, I guess you could say. So this is a great technique because it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just the same thing going around the entire head. Personally, I like anything that is monotonous and repetitive, because if it's repetitive, I don't have to do thinking on which color did I do here, which weave did I do over there. I can just work and keep a conversation going with somebody without thinking, oh crap, I forgot. Did I weave that section? Did I go in with a teasy light? Did I balayage that? And then I'm also just folding my foil itself into like this little triangle, something that I learned in one of my Paul Mitchell trainings when they had this collection called origami. And I like it because it helps me work a little bit easier around the head. And I can get to the rest of the hair a little bit easier by just folding that in half that way. And it's a nice little conversation piece in the salon itself.
Are you leaving out the hairline in the front, Danielle? Somebody's asking. I know you went over it a little bit, but.
Yes, but it's only a very, very thin section so that it's just a light veil. So not a whole lot. And you can see that a little bit better back here while I'm working. So again, just clipping that out of the way. So try to have a lot of clips because you want to control that hair. Now I'm not going right up to the top of that pivot point. I'm going just under it. So what this is going to look like is almost like a little pinwheel that's going around the head with your foils. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my clip from up here, clip away that hair to keep that nice and controlled and out of my way. And again, making sure that you're not clipping that to your foil because you don't want to smush that together. Dropping that very thin little piece right at the hairline. Now in the back, seeing as how that's actually a lot thicker and denser than the front section, back here I actually like to just take out a tiny bit of hair. So I'm not doing an even weave the same way that I did up front. This one, I'm only dropping out maybe about 3 little sections. So effectively, it almost looks more like a weave. I'm sorry, not a weave, a slice. Okay, so again, going in with the corner of my brush so that I can just tap that close to the hairline, but not right up to it. Now, some people, they have like a really long kind of nape area in the back. So you might have to take that in 2 sections, and that's fine. So for me, I always say that any technique that you're using, learn it, master it, but also play with it and have fun. Because the whole reason that we got into this is because we like playing with hair and we like seeing what it's going to do. And that's where we get our best kind of discovery or aha moments like, oh, all right, that worked. So honestly speaking, that's kind of how I stumbled onto this little technique, because the pinwheel technique has been around for a very, very long time. But I had never really seen it a lot on curly hair. I mostly saw it on just very dense hair or anybody that was interested in very chunky highlights, which, like I said, is the perfect thing when you're dealing with curly hair because it's such a large shape and it diffuses and swallows up that color because the light has a hard time finding where to reflect. So when you're using those chunkier sections, it'll pop out a lot better.
So Danielle, I think this is a good thing for the future. Maybe in the next couple weeks we'll do it, but doing like a money piece on a curly girl.
Oh, definitely.
I think that would be a good technique. We probably won't go over that today, but we'll put that into the future class stuff. So make sure you are following Free Salon Education, following Danielle. You'll see the flyers come out. But Danielle will be on here, like I said, every single Thursday. So make sure you tune in.
Well, I like to do a lot of different things, so I am more than open for requests. And even if it's something that I never tried, I will give it a try here for you and see whether it works or not.
Somebody's saying, what is the money piece?
Well, that would be just like a very bright pop right in the fringe. So right around the face. Okay, so now we're already working into our third quadrant. So as I said, this is a pretty fast moving kind of technique because we're covering a lot of hair at one time. There we go. Again, clipping away that extra hair so we can work very neatly and cleanly. Taking that vertical section in the back.
We are confirming this is a pinwheel technique, correct?
Yes.
Just on curly hair, so we're changing it up a little bit. People are asking, so.
Like I said, it's basically like a pinwheel. It's just not as many sections as you would with a pinwheel because we're going to be painting in between. So I'm one of those people that I love to do mashups. I like to learn something and then I want to see what is it going to do with that technique. Ooh, a little away from me there. What is it going to do with that technique? And another one. So combining balayage. And I mean, we've all done that when it comes to like a balayambre or even like shadow rooting and doing a little bit of balayage with that. So that's what we do all the time. That's why I'm saying it's a great thing to master a technique, but then play with it, have fun with it and make it your own because no two heads are alike. And especially for me and a lot of my clientele, which is multiracial, I'm always trying to think of things on the fly for them because in the beginning, when I was just learning one technique and then I'm applying it to everybody's head, they're like, well, why does that person have my hairstyle? Or why does that person have my hair color? And it's not theirs, but technically it is. So by being able to assess the hair, whether they're fine, medium, coarse, whether they have high density, low density, all of that stuff, that's how you modify it and make it just for them. Okay, so again, working on to our next section, and everything is just going about like clockwise around the head.
So we got questions like, how long have you been a hairdresser? So if you want to interact with that, Jess is on here. I think.
Well, I have been, oh God, I've been doing hair, I believe it's 18 years this June. Yeah.
All right.
I actually graduated from a VOTEC school. So as much as I love Paul Mitchell schools and I love Paul Mitchell itself, don't knock the vocational schools.
No, because guess what? You don't have 20 grand.
Exactly.
I'm still paying off my school. I wish it was a vocational school.
Oh my
I didn't go
God.
to Paul Mitchell either.
Well,
But
lucky
beauty
for
schools
me.
are expensive. All of them are expensive. And vocationals are not. So good for you, Danielle.
Well, I went when I was a little older. I was in my 20s and it was like right after 9/11 and I'm like, okay, I don't want to go into psychology and criminal justice because I don't want to work with crazies and criminals. What am I going to do? And my mother was interested in having her very own hairdresser.
Oh, there you go. She talked you into it.
Exactly. So as I say, mommy knows best.
Yeah, that's true.
And it just went from there. But it was funny because like I was literally coloring my mom's hair as a kid, because I got tired of her getting her hair color all over the phone, all over the bathroom. So I was applying her hair color. I was that kid that had a vanity, that little like chrome one in their room. And I would look through magazines and I would pick out hairstyles and I'd recreate them on my own head. And then I started playing around with my friend's hair too. So I didn't realize that I liked hair that much. It was just in my area. I lived in a very small town in New Jersey, and I would walk into hair salons and they would literally say, "We don't do your kind of hair."
Oh.
So yeah, you either drove into Brooklyn or to Newark and you went to, any of your experienced salons with ethnic hair, or you did your own.
So funny because, like, I don't know. It's, I think like back now, like, so we've both been doing hair almost the same amount of time. I think you're a couple years more than me, but it's like, feels like yesterday that, and
Yeah.
it's just interesting, like, to know that it flies by that fast.
Right? I mean, during the whole quarantine, I went through all of my hair stuff. And I mean, like, I've got an entire section of my basement just dedicated to hair, mannequins, everything.
Yeah.
For my educator days, all that. And I love going back to school. So I was an educator for Paul Mitchell for close to 10 years. I'm a certified cosmetology teacher of 14 years. And yeah, I've been doing hair for 18. So I eat, sleep, and breathe hair.
You have your teacher's license in New Jersey, right?
Yes. Funny enough, though, I can easily transfer my teaching license to PA. I just couldn't easily transfer my cosmetology license to PA.
That's interesting.
Right?
I didn't realize you could transfer that. Good to know.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite thing to do with hair, Danielle? Color, cut, style? What do you like?
I change all the time, but I would say style is my jam. That's what I started out doing because I couldn't cut a straight line to save my life.
Yeah.
In cosmetology school, I probably didn't make the best first impression with my classmates because, I got a tooth removed, so I was evil on my first day of school. And then that week, we were like lightly getting into hair cutting because our teacher just thought it would be fun to mix it up that year. And yeah, I could not cut a straight line. I got frustrated and I just like jabbed my scissors in the mannequin head and went outside.
Wait, did you literally jab the scissors?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
okay. That's why I'm saying I did not make a good impression. I'm a better person now. I am more calm. I was only 23.
She didn't put
at
that
the
on
time.
her resume. That was for sure. You did not put that on your resume.
No. No, I did not.
Well,
But like I said, I love hair and I love learning. So I will never say that I'm a curly hair master.
right?
I will always say that I'm a curly hair enthusiast,
Yes.
but I'm just a hair enthusiast. I love hair in general. I love to make people feel like, hey, what I've got growing out of my head is a wonderful thing and I can do whatever I want with it, whether it's thick, whether it's curly, whether it's gray, no matter what it is.
Let's talk about that for a second because I know you brought up going to salons and they said they don't do your hair, right? So for people that are nervous about curly hair, what is your number one kind of piece of advice? Because I think people, there's unfortunately probably a couple sides to this, but let's just say people that are just nervous about curly hair and don't know how to even start. Because where I went to school, I don't really think I got taught one thing about curly hair, to be honest, in Iowa. So let's talk about that. What do you think is the best thing for somebody to do other than like ordering this amber mannequin and going to town and trying to learn stuff, watching you? What else?
Well, there are a lot of little biracial babies out there. and lots of moms that need help with it.
Well, that's what people need to realize, because those salons that you went to back in the day probably are not open anymore, because everybody has some sort of curly hair, you know? So and people, it's so popular. Like that's the one thing. Like I put out a video about curly hair. It's probably one of the #1 watched things. So people, you got to be a complete, just out of touch person if you think curly hair isn't going to be 95% of your clientele right now. Like it should be 95% of your clientele. So.
Totally agree, because these days a lot more people are embracing their curl pattern.
Yep.
And I'm also part hair nerd. I like useless facts.
Yeah.
And like years ago, I stumbled upon an article that was about a scientist that before all of these microscopes were a thing, he was collecting hair from different indigenous people around the world. Now, of course, most indigenous people, they've got curly hair.
Yeah.
They're some of the older tribes, traditions, all of that stuff, whatever, who cares? Point being that when the technology actually became available, they found that one of the oldest living peoples are actually Aboriginals from Australia. Those are like the original people. And that they also found that the blonde hair that a lot of these people had, it was just almost like a gene mutation, kind of like how redheads are a gene mutation.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, to me, hair is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like it literally connects us all. I did not think to bring a towel with me.
I got a towel.
There's always one thing that I forget, no matter how much I go down a checklist. That's just how I am. But while we're waiting for that, oh, thank you. So I weaved out a section. I clipped it up top because I'm just going to let this hang. Now you can use foil. You can use, okay. So I just weaved out a chunky section, and then I just painted that on, and then I just lightly just massage that up the hair shaft a little bit, so that way it can blur it a little. And that way we don't get like a heavy demarcation line where it's just straight orange.
It's also another great thing to kind of point out is if you put hair obviously in a foil, it gets brighter, and if you don't put it in a foil, it's not going to get as bright. So you'll have different dimensions. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. See, that's why he's my boss. He thinks of these things that I don't think of.
You know what you
I just slam into the hair. Let's get it done. But that is exactly it. So even if you wanted to use Bali wrap, because that you can see through, it can separate the section, and it's not going to incubate the hair, that's also an option, and that's okay. So really, it's just up to you, because you're the creative genius behind this.
That's right.
Okay, and then also be aware that you have this entire hairline out. So if you're going to weave out this section, then you're going to be touching the hairline itself. So again, if you're nervous about that, just lightly weave that out. Leave it off to the side. That way you don't have to worry about any streakiness, and you have just that nice little light veil. If you're okay with seeing a couple little sections, then go ahead. Pick up a tiny little sliver right in that hairline, so that way it's a nice little thin section. But again, this is all about customizing it to the guest that you're working with at the time. Okay. And again, separating that, clipping that up top, right at that little pivot point. Everything else that we have hanging out here, that's what we're going to color. Now, I'm pretty much only doing about halfway through the hair because I don't want to create, a overly saturated and just something that she would have to come in all the time. Most of my natural girls, they like to get like one big color project done, and then it's just like a couple of maintenance foils or balayage or whatever, you know, throughout the weeks. Okay, so again, painting that on, and then just going through and lightly massaging that up. Now, I'm not like really clamping into the hair because I just want to massage that over the top layer of the hair, because once I squeeze that through and I'm saturating top, middle, and the bottom of it, that's where I get that line of demarcation. Whereas just giving it that light little petting over the top and then massaging that mid shaft, that's where I'm getting the saturation from just about the midpoint to the ends. And then everything that's up here, that's over the middle point, that's just going to get a light little balayage. Okay, and again, just making sure that we keep that nice and saturated. And just try to keep a towel on hand when you're doing this freehand like this, so that as you're sectioning, you're not getting lightener on the rest of the hair. And if you do, whatever, it's okay.
So I think this is a great subject to bring up. I think it's Jaris. I'm the worst with names, but it's a sweet name. Is this a fast-acting lightener, and what developer are you using? I think this was a great conversation. So we did a shoot with Paul Mitchell a couple days ago, and this conversation came up. We talked about it a lot, about not going in with extreme, like to try to lift quick, because the quicker you lift, you could create damage. And I know you're nerdy about this stuff, Danielle, so why don't you go into it? Let's talk about levels of developer, all that stuff.
Exactly. Levels of developer are, again, where you're going to customize this to exactly where you're trying to go with it. Personally, I went with the 10 volume because, seeing as how I went with the regular Synchro Lift and not the Synchro Lift Soft, it's got 9 levels of lift. So I know it's already got a certain amount of energy to it, so I don't need a whole lot. I could have even gone with 5 if I wanted to just get like a little subtle highlighting. But seeing as how I want this to pop so you can see it on camera, I'm going with the 10. Plus, there's a big misconception that you can actually ruin a curl pattern that way by going in, like too light or too high of a developer. It's not so much that you're ruining the curl pattern, you're just destroying the hair. You've melted it. So whether the hair is straight, curly, coily, if you over process it, it's just damaged. So it's not the developers.
And it's crunchy.
Exactly. So it's not so much the developers, it's just what can the hair handle. So that's why you really got to go in there and assess the hair. And seeing as how I went on with a product in the beginning, because remember, we did go in with the invisible wear, and that does help to almost provide a little bit of a buffer, because it is helping to just fill in any of those drier points of the hair that might suck up color or overly lighten. Okay, now personally, I'm a hairstylist that takes their time. I run my mouth. So I work a little bit slower. Now, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. So if you are a slower hairstylist, then all right, you just curate the kind of clientele that doesn't mind spending that kind of time with you. So don't always feel like you have to match what the next person is doing. Do what you're capable of that gets you the absolute best result.
Let's talk about our thoughts on bleaching hair when it's clean or oily.
I'm sorry?
Clean or oily hair, putting lightener on that. Scalp, that whole kind of thing. You got thoughts on that?
Yes, I do, because especially when it comes to like somebody that likes to work out a lot. When I was doing more relaxers than natural hair, I would always tell people, do not work out before you're getting any type of on-scalp treatment done, because then that's actually getting all of the blood flow going, and increased blood flow can lead to irritation at the scalp. Again, you can spray things like the Awafui Hydromist spray, which does help because it's got like spirulina, plankton, a lot of sea extracts that help to just balance out the pH of the hair as well as the skin. But I would just rather people didn't do that. Also, I tell people not to drink coffee or sodas or anything like that before I'm doing any on-scalp treatments. And that's anybody, not just curly girls. Okay, so again, we're just repetitive motion going through there. Hand painting, saturating those ends. So this is what I was referring to as our medium section. So everything that is in the foil are our highlights. These are kind of like our medium lights. And then we have the low light of the natural color.
Very cool. People are loving it.
Yay. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was nervous about doing this, but I do love hair. So I was excited to actually come on and share something like this, and especially to talk about my little Brit Brat, because I don't have any kids, but that kid is about the closest I'll ever get, because I have seen her grow up. Like when she got her license, I was one of the first rides in her car around the Salon parking lot. So again, like, this is a great career in where you become a part of people's lives in such a big way. So watching this amazing girl grow into a woman and just being part of her journey, it's been a privilege. And she's helped me grow a lot because of all that hair. And, you know, I've learned some things, so I won't act like I haven't messed up her hair. But once you have that kind of trust with your guest, that you have the best of intentions, and that you're just honest, like, I'm human, I make mistakes. But am I willing to fix it and learn from it? Yeah.
This image
Absolutely.
is you brushed it out, right? Right.
Yes.
Pre-highlighting it, kind of like you did, just like you did at the beginning of this one.
Yes. Like I said, I just find it easier to work through the hair, and that you're not going to cause somebody a whole lot of discomfort, because going through and ripping at somebody's hair, one, you're messing with the integrity of it, and then it's just not a nice experience for them.
Yeah.
And I know that some people might get a little bit self-conscious by having that big fluff of hair, but personally, I'm going to be revealing my age here. I grew up watching things like Diana Ross Mahogany and, you know, Diana Ross again, Wizard of Oz. So big, huge, flowing manes of hair have been like hair goals for me. And then, like, through the 90s, there was a show on BET called Girlfriends with Tracee Ellis Ross. And that was just every episode hair goals of perfect Black girl magic. And I absolutely loved it. And like, one of my favorite episodes of theirs was Peace, Love, and Hair Grease. And it was just all about women in their hair. Well, Black women in their hair. So yes, hair has been a big part of my life, even before I realized that I wanted to get into doing hair. So if I'm helping even one person, that's great.
That's what it's about. So everyone's losing their mind about caffeine. So let's talk about this for a second. I didn't hear this. I didn't hear this part, but all my roots in the Midwest are telling me right now that everyone's just losing their mind. That they can't have a soda or a pop pre-highlights. So let's just talk about this.
Well, like I said, if it's off the scalp, you're fine. If it's on the scalp, do yourself a favor. Don't have caffeine. Don't work out. It's just not going to be good.
Everybody needs to realize, like, this is things that we're, kind of taught, is that everything leaves through your scalp. So, and that's why Danielle was talking about working out, all this stuff. Like, every sweat, like, everything's going to leave through, especially your sugars, and it just raises blood pressure. And so all of it is going to mess with your scalp. So you just want to be careful, especially if you get easily irritated, like on your scalp. Just be careful with the things that you're putting in your body. A lot of people actually have like flakiness on their scalp and different things, and they start buying dandruff shampoos and all this stuff, but they're still eating Rice Krispie treats and, Lucky Charms and putting terrible sugars in their bodies. And that's really what's leaving their, that's what's building up on their head. So,
which is true. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you have to have an absolute clean diet, because obviously I'm not a salad eating shit.
Me neither.
I love sweets.
That's how I know this. That's why I have this knowledge. But I'm just saying, don't blame, not that anybody's blaming it. I just started ranting a little bit. I'm going to stop myself.
No, but it's cool, because like, I've been getting into that myself. A couple years back, I became severely B12 deficient, which, by the way, vitamins do also play a big role in what affects hair growth. So I never knew B12, vitamin D, huge, huge things that affect hair health.
Yeah.
So when I was B12 deficient, I started having a lot of breakage right in my hairline. And that's what led me to cutting off all of my hair a couple of years back. Now I just know that I like it, so I did it again. But yeah, it was my B12 and vitamin D deficiency that led to a lot of hair breakage, a lot of problems with skin and nails and all that stuff. So it's important to know what's going in and on your body. So that's why I do let clients know people are going to lie or lie by omission. So yeah, there's going to be some mistakes because not everybody's going to give you their hair history, but by letting people know, hey, if you have henna on your hair and I'm putting lightener, this might make nair.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
If you have faria on your hair, this might make nair with a lightener, no matter how gentle, no matter how much Olaplex you put in there. So yeah, being aware of all of those little things and, you know, discussing them with your clientele, because throughout the years, my clientele has changed age, health, all of that. So I've had to help women through cancer and how chemo affects the hair health as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that I love learning about hair. And one of the reasons that I ended up coming to work for Matt was I always want to be challenged. I don't want to be complacent. And 18 years of doing hair, there was a point where I was getting pretty lazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came here, and it's great when you have a boss that you can literally talk with and be like, hey, I'm not doing hair the way that I like. What can I do?
Well, and everyone should surround themselves with people that, you know, push them, you know.
Exactly. And then like Brian.
Right. And then people like Brian.
Because like literally I have known Brian just as long as Matt. And it's a running joke how like there are times that he will literally smack the hell out of my arm or something and be like, get in there. And then he's known Brittany forever too, because we've worked at a lot of salons together. So like, again, it's like nice community. It's sharing knowledge, inspiration, but it's also camaraderie and just silly bugger time like that.
Yeah. And guys, we're starting this, like I said, so Danielle, you know, will be on here live Thursdays at 12 Eastern Standard Time. And then Brian's also part of this now too. So every Wednesday at 10 a.m. he'll be doing color classes for you guys. So he's got balayage coming up next week. And I'm on here, you know, you guys know, Tuesdays if you have been watching. If you're new, you don't know. So, you know, just super fun things. So Danielle, do you want to just kind of do a little recap over it? Let me zoom in on you, and then we can show the pre-done again.
All right.
Before we go.
So now we are all done with our application. So we have our hand-painted sections that are out here on the perimeter. I have them just laying over those little triangle sections, so they're not touching any other hair. And like I said, this is a lightener that does not expand, so you don't really have to worry about it bleeding onto another section. Everything that is inside of foils that I did first, it's being incubated, so that's going to come up a little lighter. Everything you see in this nice little lovely pinhead ponytail here is just going to be untouched, and that was simply just to get it out of the way, and that I won't be using extra product, because if anything, I would rather not use, you know, like as much foil or as much body wrap. So if I can leave something on its own, then I do. But again, totally up to you and whatever your preference is. And so that hair technique and coloring technique leads to this lovely, very high contrast and very popped and just lovely metallic kind of highlight. Now, what I used to tone with was Paul Mitchell Crema 8NB with 10 volume. And again, I just prefer the cream. It has a lot of really nice emollients and different things like that that just help to condition the hair. So you always want to make sure that it's leaving the hair in the best state that it can be. So that was another reason that I chose Crema, because it's just ultra conditioning and it's a demi-permanent. So that's our lesson for today, and I hope I helped out. And if there's any questions, hit me up. My Instagram is at the hands downs, and
Oh, yeah,
I
let me
try to
put that up
answer.
on the thing real quick. Keep going.
And I try to answer any questions that are on there. So let's become friends. Let's talk hair. Share whatever you're doing with hair or whatever discoveries that you have. I love to learn from other hairstylists.
Yeah, for sure. So you can see all Danielle's work on Instagram at the hands downs. You know, definitely send her some DMs, ask her some questions, get her
and definitely inspire me to get better about posting, because
right.
I take the pictures, I just forget to post them.
Yeah, we're all hope you'll do it now. I feel like we'll get back into it.
Yes.
Can you do a close up? Yeah, for sure. Let me see. Where's that pre-done? Let's move that lady out of the way. Let's get nice and close in.
So close up of both of them.
I think the pre-done one. Let's just kind of show the highlights, I guess, a little bit. So you can see.
Okay, so again, because we're using that nice little kind of pinwheel, you can see that right in the top here, it's just an even distribution of color going all the way around. And the great thing being is that you can see like little lighter bits, but then you can see some of those darker pieces push some more of the light pieces.
Did you show this toner like on the thing?
Yes, but I can do that again. So that was with Crema XG 8MV. I mean, this is what I do.
I know.
Klutz.
I mean, it's hard. It really is. It's all backwards. She's looking into a screen, but it's backwards.
And I've never done this before.
Exactly. All right, cool. So everybody's saying that they loved watching it. Looking forward to more. Beautiful work. Love it. Needed this. I think it's cool. I'm, you know, you guys let us know if you have any, you know, requests for future videos. Danielle's, you know, we're going to come up with the full schedule, but already next week, are we doing the rainbow color melt thing?
Yes.
So next week we're actually doing rainbow color melt, not on curly hair, which will be really fun, and I'm looking forward to that. So, and then we're gonna get into relaxers, and we're gonna do all kinds of stuff, right? So
absolutely,
super exciting. All right, let me see. Anything else you want to say, Danielle, besides to go follow you?
Have fun with hair, and everybody stay safe wherever you are in the world.
That's right, for sure. I keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. All right, guys, and that's not in focus. There we go. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Can't wait to see you guys. Make sure you download the FSE Now app. So there's a few things if you guys want to follow along with what we do. You can go to Shop FSE. Let me put this here. Some of the tools, the clips and stuff that Danielle used, we sell those. And then also, what's the other thing? FSE Now. So if you're looking to grow your education and you want to know when these classes are happening, all of that, we have new updates coming that's going to showcase live classes and different things. But if you want to watch any of the past classes we've done, you can watch them on the app. And that's pretty much it. So go download FSE Now on the App Store. And thank you guys very much. We'll see you guys on the next show. Thanks.
baby.